The sleek private jet, a symbol of ultimate luxury and privilege, gleamed under the soft cabin lights as Cassandra Brooks stepped aboard with a measured confidence that came from years of breaking barriers and forging her own path as a powerful Black CEO. Every inch of her presence, from the tailored precision of her business suit to the quiet fire in her dark eyes, spoke of hard-earned success and resilience, a woman who had navigated a world often unwilling to see her as more than an outsider. Yet, despite her accomplishments and the clearly marked status on her ticket, Cassandra was met with an unexpected and unsettling barrier when she attempted to take her seat in the plush first-class section. Captain Emily Reynolds, the pilot whose authority extended far beyond the cockpit, blocked her way with a stiff posture and a gaze that flickered with thinly veiled contempt. "You can't sit here," Emily declared, her voice clipped and dismissive, leaving no room for discussion. The words cut sharply through the hushed murmurs of passengers who sensed the tension instantly, a ripple of discomfort spreading like wildfire through the cabin's opulence. Cassandra's heart tightened, but she refused to show the sting of this blatant discrimination. Instead, she drew on a deep well of calm and dignity, forged from countless encounters with prejudice and the necessity of standing tall in the face of adversity. Meeting Emily's gaze directly, she responded evenly, with the quiet force of someone accustomed to claiming her space without apology, "I am a paying passenger and the CEO of Brooks Enterprises. This seat is mine, and I will not be denied." The atmosphere thickened as the clash between these two formidable women became the center of attention, each embodying very different worlds and values. Emily's arrogance surfaced in defensive flashes, her rigid adherence to authority masking an unease that came from being confronted by a presence she neither expected nor could easily control. Cassandra's composed resilience, by contrast, illuminated the injustice with a quiet but undeniable power, exposing the invisible currents of racial and social bias that often lurk beneath the surface of elite environments. Around them, passengers watched in a charged silence, some exchanging furtive glances, others visibly uncomfortable, realizing that this was more than a dispute over seating. It was a microcosm of the broader struggles faced by many Black women who rise to prominence only to be questioned or excluded in spaces that should honor their achievements. Cassandra's refusal to back down was a profound assertion of her dignity and worth, a reclamation of respect that transcended the plush leather seat she sought to occupy. Her presence disrupted the carefully curated image of exclusivity aboard the jet, challenging assumptions about who belonged in the highest echelons of success. The confrontation laid bare the fault lines where race, power, and privilege intersect, revealing how authority can sometimes be wielded not just to lead, but to exclude. Yet, in the face of Emily's cold dismissal, Cassandra remained unshaken, her steadiness a testament to the strength cultivated by years of proving herself in boardrooms and beyond. This moment between the pilot and the CEO was not merely a clash of personalities but a symbolic battle over recognition and respect, underscoring the emotional labor borne by those who must continuously affirm their legitimacy in environments that question their right to exist there. As the jet's engines hummed softly, preparing for takeoff, the unresolved tension lingered, a reminder that the journey ahead was not just physical but deeply personal, a navigation through the skies of societal bias and the invisible turbulence of discrimination. Cassandra's quiet but firm stance set the tone for a story about resilience, courage, and the refusal to accept invisibility or marginalization. It was a narrative that echoed the experiences of countless individuals who confront systemic barriers with grace, who assert their place in the face of exclusion, and who redefine power not through aggression but through dignity and persistence. This opening scene captured the essence of a profound emotional and social journey, one where strength is measured not by the ability to overpower, but by the courage to demand respect and equality, even when faced with outright dismissal. Through Cassandra's experience, the story illuminated the ongoing fight for justice and recognition, reminding readers that true leadership involves standing firm in one's truth and commanding the respect one has earned, regardless of the resistance encountered. As the plane ascended into the sky, so too did the promise of transformation both for Cassandra and for those who witness her unwavering resolve. In this confined space of luxury and power, the battle for dignity and acknowledgement unfolded with quiet intensity, marking the beginning of a narrative about breaking barriers, challenging biases, and soaring beyond the limits imposed by others. This was more than a flight, it was the start of a powerful testament to the resilience and spirit of a woman who refuses to be sidelined, whose journey demands to be seen, heard, and respected. Cassandra's rise to power was not a simple ascent but a profound journey marked by relentless perseverance, extraordinary intelligence, and an unshakable commitment to leadership, forged amid a landscape fraught with societal barriers and biases that sought to keep her confined to limits others imposed because of her identity as a black woman. From the very beginning, Cassandra understood that her path would be unlike most. While her peers often navigated the corporate world with relative ease, she was acutely aware of the additional weight she carried, prejudices both overt and subtle that questioned her capabilities, doubted her authority, and resisted her presence in rooms where power was traditionally reserved for others. These systemic challenges were relentless, manifesting in assumptions about her competence, skepticism toward her decisions, and the constant pressure to prove her worth far beyond the expectations set for her counterparts. Yet, Cassandra refused to be defined or diminished by these obstacles. Instead, she used them as catalysts, fueling a fierce determination that propelled her forward. She immersed herself in mastering the complexities of business, honing her strategic acumen with precision, and nurturing authentic relationships built on trust and mutual respect. Her leadership style was a blend of sharp intellect and genuine empathy, allowing her to inspire teams, drive innovation, and cultivate a workplace culture where diverse voices were not just heard but celebrated. Every achievement along her journey, from managing small projects to leading entire divisions, was hard-earned, the result of long hours, meticulous preparation, and an unwavering commitment to excellence that left no room for doubt. Cassandra's success was not accidental, it was a testament to years of sacrifice, self-belief, and the courage to challenge norms that had historically excluded women like her from ascending to the highest ranks. Yet, the emotional core of her story lies in the stark contrast between her hard-won success and the moments when narrow-minded prejudice attempted to undermine it. One such moment occurred during a seemingly routine interaction with a pilot, a person whose dismissive attitude and subtle bias revealed the persistent undercurrents of discrimination she confronted beyond the corporate sphere. This encounter was not just about an isolated act of disrespect but a reflection of the broader societal reluctance to fully acknowledge and respect her achievements. It highlighted the emotional toll of success for someone who must navigate not only the pressures of leadership but also the sting of exclusion and prejudice that continues to permeate even the most professional environments. Despite these moments of challenge, Cassandra's response was one of resilience and grace. She stood firm, embodying dignity and strength, knowing that her value was not determined by others' narrow perceptions but by her own unwavering commitment to her vision and principles. Her journey serves as a powerful narrative about breaking barriers in a world that often resists change, and about the transformative power of perseverance in the face of systemic bias. Through Cassandra's story, we see the complexity of ambition and identity intertwine, the weight of societal expectations balanced by the profound satisfaction of redefining what leadership can look like. She becomes more than just a CEO, she is a symbol of hope and progress, an emblem of what is possible when talent and determination refuse to be constrained by prejudice. Cassandra's rise is deeply relatable, echoing the experiences of many who face invisible barriers but continue to strive for excellence and recognition. It teaches us about the emotional complexity behind every success story, reminding us that true leadership often requires not just skill and intelligence, but courage, resilience, and the grace to transform obstacles into stepping stones. Ultimately, Cassandra's story is one of empowerment and transformation, not only of herself but of the environments she influences. It challenges us to reconsider our own biases and to recognize the strength it takes to lead authentically in a world still learning to embrace diversity in all its forms. Her legacy is not simply the position she holds but the doors she opens for others, the norms she challenges, and the narrative she reshapes about what it means to be a Black woman in leadership. Through her journey, we witness the ongoing evolution of power and the profound impact of those who dare to rise, inspiring generations to come. Captain Emily Reynolds carried herself with the confidence and authority expected of a seasoned pilot, her uniform crisp and her gaze steady, but beneath that composed exterior simmered a complex mix of fear, insecurity, and deep-seated prejudice that clouded her judgment and poisoned her leadership. She had risen through the ranks in a world that often demanded more from women, where every mistake could be magnified and every decision questioned more harshly than those of her male counterparts. This pressure forged in her a fierce desire to maintain control and protect her status, a desire that sometimes manifested as resistance to change and an unwillingness to acknowledge others' abilities when they threatened her authority, especially when those others challenged her preconceived notions. Cassandra, new yet undeniably skilled, represented that challenge. To Emily, Cassandra's rightful place beside her on the flight deck was not a given but a threat, stirring feelings of vulnerability and fear that she masked behind a veneer of superiority and dismissal. Emily's prejudice was not born of blatant malice but rather from a fear of losing the control and respect she had painstakingly earned, a fear that made her blind to Cassandra's competence and humanity. She wielded her authority not just as a tool for command but as a weapon to undermine and marginalize, her decisions laced with bias that eroded trust and sowed conflict. The story peels back the layers of Emily's internal struggle, her pride, her doubts, her defensive posture against perceived encroachment, revealing a deeply human flaw, the inability to reconcile personal insecurities with professional responsibilities. Her resistance to recognizing Cassandra's rightful place was a reflection of a broader societal struggle with power, identity, and acceptance, illustrating how prejudice often stems from fear rather than hatred. Yet, despite her flawed actions, Emily's perspective invites empathy because it exposes the pain and pressure behind prejudice, the loneliness of leadership, the anxiety of being constantly tested, and the instinct to cling to familiar hierarchies in uncertain times. This emotional complexity enriches the conflict, showing that the fight for recognition and respect is rarely one-sided but a collision of personal histories and vulnerabilities. The narrative does not excuse Emily's misuse of power but seeks to understand the motivations that fuel it, making the story relatable and compelling by portraying her as a multifaceted individual rather than a simple antagonist. Through Emily's eyes, the audience glimpses the cost of prejudice not only to those who suffer under it but also to those who harbor it, trapped in a cycle of fear and control that ultimately isolates them. Her journey highlights the destructive nature of bias, the way it blinds us to the strengths of others and blindsides us to our own weaknesses. At the same time, it suggests the possibility of growth if one can confront these fears honestly and allow space for change. The story emphasizes that true leadership requires humility and openness, qualities Emily struggles to embrace, but which could transform conflict into collaboration. It also underscores the courage it takes for someone like Cassandra to persist in the face of such resistance, illuminating the resilience needed to break down barriers erected by prejudice and power dynamics. The interplay between Emily's prejudice and Cassandra's perseverance creates a powerful tension that drives the narrative forward, reflecting real-world struggles with authority, bias, and inclusion. The emotional resonance of Emily's internal conflict and external actions invites viewers or readers to examine their own biases and the ways they wield power, whether in workplaces, communities, or personal relationships. Ultimately, the story reveals that prejudice and power are deeply intertwined and that addressing one requires confronting the other. It calls for compassion not only toward those who suffer discrimination but also toward those who perpetuate it out of fear and insecurity, without condoning their actions. By showing the pilot's perspective in such depth, the narrative fosters a more nuanced conversation about leadership, prejudice, and the human complexities that shape behavior. Captain Emily Reynolds emerges as a symbol of the challenges inherent in breaking free from ingrained biases and the painful but necessary process of self-reflection and change. Her story is a reminder that authority is a double-edged sword capable of protecting or harming, and that how it is wielded defines not just individuals but the communities and cultures they serve. The emotional journey encapsulated in Emily's struggle brings to light the urgent need for empathy and courage in confronting prejudice, encouraging a move toward more inclusive, understanding, and equitable environments where talent and worth are recognized beyond fear and bias. The air inside the cramped airplane cabin grew thick with tension as Cassandra, standing firm in the aisle, refused to yield an inch to Captain Reynolds' increasingly aggressive denials. The usually calm hum of engines and murmurs of passengers faded into an uneasy silence, broken only by the sharp edge of voices clashing over a fundamental issue that was about to define the rest of the journey. Cassandra's posture was resolute, shoulders squared, chin lifted, eyes steady and unwavering, radiating a quiet confidence born from years of experience and a deep-seated belief in fairness and respect. Captain Reynolds, on the other hand, grew visibly agitated, his frustration simmering just beneath the surface as he attempted to assert authority, his tone edged with impatience and dismissal. The passengers, caught between shock and disbelief, watched the exchange unfold like a tense drama, their eyes darting between the two figures locked in this battle of wills. What started as a disagreement had escalated into a poignant struggle that transcended the immediate conflict, reflecting a much larger narrative of respect, equality, and the subtle battles faced daily by those who challenge entrenched biases. Cassandra's voice did not waver as she calmly yet firmly questioned the pilot's refusal to acknowledge her rightful concerns, cutting through his defensive bluster with the clarity of someone who knew her worth and demanded to be heard. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air, compelling even the most indifferent onlookers to reassess their understanding of authority and justice. Captain Reynolds' mounting frustration was palpable, his attempts to regain control only fueled the fire of Cassandra's resolve, highlighting a clash not just of personalities but of principles. The scene became a microcosm of broader societal struggles, where power dynamics are tested, and the courage to stand up for oneself becomes a catalyst for change. Passengers whispered among themselves, some nodding in silent support, others wrestling with their own preconceptions, as the tension between Cassandra and the captain illuminated the everyday challenges of earning respect in environments traditionally dominated by hierarchical authority. Cassandra's unwavering confidence served as a beacon of empowerment, inspiring those around her to reconsider the boundaries of their own voices and the importance of standing firm in moments that demand dignity and equality. The confrontation did not escalate into hostility or violence, instead, it remained a powerful testament to the strength of calm determination against the tide of dismissal and denial. Captain Reynolds' growing frustration was a mirror to the discomfort faced when long-standing power structures are questioned, while Cassandra's steadfastness embodied the transformative power of self-respect and the refusal to be marginalized. This moment was more than a dispute between a passenger and a pilot. It was a profound assertion of equality, a challenge to ingrained attitudes, and a demonstration that respect is not granted by rank but earned through character and courage. As the confrontation reached its peak, the cabin seemed to hold its breath, recognizing the significance of what was happening within its confined walls. Cassandra's quiet strength and Captain Reynolds' faltering command became symbols of the ongoing battle for recognition and fairness that plays out daily in countless settings around the world. When the tension finally began to dissipate, it was clear that this was a turning point not only in the flight but in the broader conversation about respect and equality. Passengers left the moment forever changed, carrying with them a renewed understanding that true authority lies not in asserting dominance but in honoring the dignity of every individual. Cassandra's courage to stand tall in the face of resistance illuminated a path forward, reminding everyone that change often begins with a single voice refusing to be silenced. The story captured here was not just about a confrontation on a plane. It was a vivid illustration of the struggle for justice and equality that resonates far beyond the narrow aisles of an aircraft, echoing in the hearts and minds of all who dare to challenge unfairness. It was a testament to the power of confidence and integrity, and a call to recognize the everyday heroes who fight for respect in the quietest but most profound ways. Through Cassandra's example, the narrative unfolded as a universal message of hope, resilience, and the enduring human spirit's capacity to demand fairness in even the most ordinary of circumstances, forever changing the lives of those who bore witness. The tension aboard the plane was thick enough to suffocate, a suffocating mix of fear, uncertainty, and simmering injustice that seemed to hang in the stale recycled air as Cassandra stood firm, refusing to be intimidated by the hostile environment crafted by Captain Reynolds and his allies. From the moment the conflict began, it was clear that Cassandra, a woman whose strength and leadership had been questioned and undermined countless times, was not willing to let the prejudice and discrimination dictate the fate of the flight or her own dignity. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the cabin with a resolute calmness, a stark contrast to the chaos that brewed beneath the surface. In a world where authority is often wielded like a weapon to silence voices like hers, Cassandra's decisive action to ground the plane was not just a technical maneuver but a profound assertion of control over her own narrative and power. The shock that rippled through the cabin when she decisively fired Captain Reynolds echoed far beyond the immediate act. It was a powerful statement against the culture of intimidation and injustice that had long permeated spaces like this, where authority was too often abused and voices like Cassandra's suppressed. This moment became a turning point not just in the journey of the flight but in the larger battle against systemic discrimination and bias. Passengers who had initially been paralyzed by fear or uncertainty now witnessed a woman standing tall, unflinching in the face of opposition, embodying a form of leadership that was both courageous and compassionate. The story of Cassandra's rise in that intense moment was deeply relatable because it reflected a universal struggle many face, the fight to claim one's rightful place and to refuse to be diminished by unfair treatment. Her quick thinking under pressure showcased not only her expertise but also her unbreakable spirit, inspiring those aboard and those who would hear her story to find their own strength in moments of adversity. The emotional gravity of the scene was felt in the hush that fell over the cabin. The stunned silence that followed the firing of Captain Reynolds was thick with realization and respect, an unspoken acknowledgement that Cassandra had shifted the balance of power. It was a moment of justice served not through aggression but through firm, clear, and ethical leadership. The narrative invited viewers to walk alongside Cassandra's journey, to feel the weight of discrimination she bore and the empowerment she reclaimed by standing up for herself and others. It was a call to recognize that leadership is not about dominance but about responsibility, courage, and integrity. Cassandra's refusal to tolerate injustice resonated deeply because it shattered stereotypes about who gets to lead and how authority should be exercised. This act of taking control was more than a job-related decision. It was a bold reclamation of agency in a world that often tries to deny women, particularly women of color, that very agency. As the plane was safely grounded under her command, the relief and respect that blossomed among the passengers were tangible. They had witnessed not just a technical resolution but a profound moment of human triumph, a woman breaking through barriers, demanding fairness, and redefining what it means to lead under pressure. The story's power lies in its emotional honesty and the way it honors resilience in the face of adversity, inspiring viewers to stand firm in their own lives when confronted with discrimination or injustice. It serves as a reminder that leadership can be gentle yet unyielding, compassionate yet decisive, and that true strength lies in the ability to act with integrity and conviction when it matters most. Through Cassandra's example, the narrative urges everyone to recognize their own potential to influence change, to refuse to accept unfairness, and to take control of their destinies with courage and clarity. In this single, defining moment, Cassandra takes control, captures the essence of empowerment, making it a timeless story about overcoming obstacles, challenging systemic wrongs, and leading with unwavering dignity, no matter the cost. The bus was filled with a heavy silence that hung like a thick fog, the kind that follows a sudden shock, an event so charged with raw emotion that the passengers found themselves suspended between disbelief and dawning awareness. At the center of it all stood Cassandra, her eyes steady despite the turmoil that had just unfolded. Moments before, she had confronted blatant discrimination, a moment many had witnessed but few dared to challenge. The initial reaction among the passengers was stunned silence, faces frozen in expressions that flickered between confusion, discomfort, and disbelief. Some averted their eyes, unwilling to meet the weight of the injustice that had been so starkly displayed, while others glanced at each other, searching silently for reassurance or understanding. Slowly, as the shock began to wear off, the tension in the air shifted, replaced by a subtle but growing sense of respect for Cassandra's courage. Her calm yet firm refusal to accept mistreatment became a catalyst, breaking the invisible barrier of silence that had long allowed such unfairness to persist unnoticed or unchallenged. One by one, the passengers' expressions softened from guarded suspicion to empathy, their minds stirring with realizations that this was not just an isolated incident but a reflection of a broader, systemic problem woven into everyday life. Some recalled moments of their own discomfort or complicity, the times they had witnessed injustice yet remained silent out of fear or indifference. Others felt a surge of shame, recognizing how societal prejudices had shaped their perceptions and actions, often in subtle, unexamined ways. As they absorbed Cassandra's quiet strength, many felt a newfound urge to stand alongside her, to become allies in the fight against discrimination rather than passive observers. This awakening was palpable, a collective stirring of conscience that transcended the immediate confines of the bus and reached into the larger world beyond its windows. Conversations, once hesitant and whispered, began to ripple through the group, a shared acknowledgement that change was necessary, that respect and dignity should be the birthright of every individual, regardless of the differences society too often uses to divide. The passengers, once strangers united only by the roots of their daily lives, found themselves connected by a common understanding forged in that moment of confrontation. Their shared experience became a powerful reminder that allyship is not passive but active, requiring courage, empathy, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. As Cassandra quietly gathered herself, preparing to continue her journey, the passengers' newfound respect for her courage transformed into a commitment, silent but steadfast, to challenge discrimination wherever they encountered it. The event became a mirror, reflecting the subtle ways bias and unfairness operate beneath the surface of everyday interactions, and it ignited a collective desire to be part of the solution rather than bystanders to injustice. The bus resumed its movement through the city streets, but the atmosphere inside had irrevocably changed. The passengers carried with them a deeper understanding, a renewed sense of responsibility, and the seed of hope that, through awareness and solidarity, a more just and compassionate society could emerge. In that shared moment, they realized that courage is contagious and that the ripple effect of one person's stand against injustice can inspire many others to raise their voices. The story of Cassandra's resilience became a beacon not just of resistance but of possibility, and the passengers, forever altered by what they had witnessed, stepped forward into their lives with a heightened awareness of their own power to effect change. It was a reminder that every act of courage, no matter how small, challenges the status quo and paves the way for a future where dignity and respect are truly universal. And so, as the bus moved onward, carrying its passengers toward their destinations, it also carried the silent promise of a society awakening, one heart, one mind, one act of courage at a time. In the quiet solitude of her room, Cassandra sat alone, the day's events replaying over and over in her mind. The incident had left her feeling raw, exposed in ways she hadn't anticipated. She was no stranger to challenge or adversity, but the sting of being unfairly judged cut deep, leaving a bruise on her spirit that was both painful and humbling. It wasn't just the incident itself, it was the way people looked at her afterward, as if she were somehow less worthy, less credible, less deserving of respect because of misunderstandings and prejudice. That judgment felt like a betrayal, especially because it came not from distant strangers but from those who should have known better, who should have seen beyond the surface and recognized her true character. Cassandra had always carried herself with pride and dignity, and to have that questioned so publicly was a bitter pill to swallow. Yet beneath that pain, a resilient flame flickered. She felt a deep sense of pride, not arrogance, but a quiet, steadfast pride in how she had handled everything. She had faced the storm with courage, refusing to be silenced or diminished, choosing instead to speak her truth and stand her ground, even when it felt like the whole world was against her. Reflecting on the experience, Cassandra realized that her strength didn't come from an absence of fear or hurt but from the willingness to embrace those feelings and move forward anyway. The emotional toll was undeniable. Discrimination is not just an external battle but an internal one, a fight against doubt, frustration, and the desire to retreat. Even the strongest individuals are vulnerable to these corrosive effects, and Cassandra was no exception. Yet, it was this very vulnerability that made her courage all the more authentic. Her story was not one of invulnerability but of human resilience, of someone who, despite being wounded, chose to keep fighting for fairness, for understanding, and for a place where her identity could be embraced rather than feared. In the stillness of that reflection, hope began to take root. Cassandra's hope was not naive optimism but a realistic and determined belief that her actions could spark change. She wished that by speaking out, by refusing to let the incident define or defeat her, she could inspire others to break their silence as well. She hoped her story would be a catalyst, encouraging a broader conversation about the biases and barriers that persist in society, and the ways they harm individuals who are simply trying to live and contribute authentically. More than that, she hoped for a future where people would be judged on the content of their character and the merit of their actions, rather than on stereotypes or preconceived notions. This hope gave her strength, even as she acknowledged the long road ahead, a path that would likely be marked by resistance, misunderstanding, and setbacks. But she was ready to walk that path because the alternative, silence and acceptance of injustice, was not an option. Cassandra's reflection also humanized the complex emotions that come with experiencing discrimination. There was pain, yes, but also anger, not destructive, but righteous and motivating. There was frustration with the slow pace of change and the stubbornness of prejudice, but alongside these feelings was an unyielding resilience. Her emotional journey was a reminder that strength is not the absence of struggle but the ability to endure, to feel deeply, and to continue to hope and act. It was a testament to the fact that those who face discrimination carry wounds that are often invisible but no less real, and that their courage in confronting these wounds deserves recognition and respect. As Cassandra sat quietly, she also thought about the impact her experience might have beyond herself. She imagined others who had faced similar struggles, those who might feel alone, misunderstood, or overwhelmed by the weight of bias. She wanted them to know that they were not alone, that their voices mattered, and that speaking out could be a powerful step toward healing and change. Her hope extended into a vision of community and solidarity, where individuals could come together to support one another, to share their stories, and to collectively push back against discrimination in all its forms. This reflection became a turning point for Cassandra. It strengthened her resolve to be more than just a survivor of injustice, to be a catalyst for progress and empathy. She recognized that her story was part of a much larger tapestry of human experience, a tapestry woven with threads of pain and perseverance, sorrow and strength, fear and hope. And within that tapestry, each story mattered, each voice had the power to contribute to a more just and compassionate world. The emotional complexity Cassandra experienced was not a weakness but a profound expression of her humanity. It revealed the depth of her character and the breadth of her courage. She understood that healing and change would require patience and persistence, but she was committed to the journey, knowing that every small victory counted. Her reflection illuminated the truth that discrimination leaves scars, but also that those scars can become sources of strength when met with courage, support, and hope. As the evening deepened, Cassandra felt a sense of calm settle over her. The day's pain was still present, but it no longer overwhelmed her. Instead, it became part of her story, a story of resilience, dignity, and hope. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that her voice mattered, her experience was valid, and her actions could inspire change. In that moment of quiet reflection, Cassandra embraced the fullness of her journey, honoring both the pain and the pride, and stepping forward with renewed determination to build a future where justice and understanding would prevail. Ariana's journey transcends personal struggle and blossoms into a powerful message of empowerment, one that resonates far beyond her own life and challenges systemic discrimination entrenched in society. Her story is a compelling call to action that urges everyone, not just those who face prejudice directly, to recognize their inherent strength and the crucial role they play in confronting injustice. Growing up, Ariana encountered barriers shaped by deep-rooted biases based on her race, gender, and background. These challenges were not isolated incidents but reflections of systemic discrimination that millions experience daily, often in silence. Through her courage and resilience, Ariana embodies the transformative power of standing up not only for oneself but for others who are marginalized or overlooked. Her story reveals the heavy toll that inequality exacts, but it also illuminates a path forward, one marked by awareness, empathy, and collective action. The narrative pushes viewers to look inward and acknowledge the privileges they hold, while simultaneously inspiring them to use those privileges to uplift those silenced by prejudice. Ariana's experiences expose the fractures in societal structures that perpetuate inequality, from microaggressions in classrooms and workplaces to broader institutional barriers that limit opportunity and voice. Yet, rather than succumb to despair or victimhood, Ariana's journey is one of empowerment, an inspiring testament to the human spirit's capacity to challenge oppression and to demand change. Her story invites audiences to recognize that empowerment begins with belief in one's worth, in the right to equality, and in the power of collective voices united against discrimination. Through vivid moments of vulnerability and strength, Ariana illustrates how empowerment is both a personal and communal endeavor. It requires courage to confront one's own fears and doubts, as well as the willingness to stand alongside others who face injustice. This message is deeply relatable, as it speaks to anyone who has ever felt marginalized, silenced, or unseen. It reassures them that their experiences matter and that their voices can spark meaningful change. Ariana's journey also serves as a reminder that empowerment is not an abstract ideal but a practical, ongoing process, one that demands persistence, education, and allyship. It challenges viewers to question societal norms and to reject complacency in the face of inequality. By doing so, it cultivates a sense of responsibility and possibility, the responsibility to act and the possibility of a more just and inclusive world. The narrative powerfully underscores that no one is powerless, and that change often begins with small acts of courage, speaking out, listening, supporting, and refusing to accept the status quo. Through Ariana's eyes, we see how empowerment can ripple outward, inspiring others to rise and challenge discrimination in their own lives and communities. Her story is a beacon of hope, illuminating how individual strength, when combined with collective effort, can dismantle barriers and reshape society. Ultimately, Ariana's message is a call for unity and action, a reminder that true equality is achievable only when we all commit to confronting prejudice, uplifting marginalized voices, and embracing diversity as a source of strength rather than division. It is a compelling and emotional appeal to recognize the power within each person to be an agent of change and to support those fighting for justice. Ariana's journey invites audiences not just to witness her struggle, but to join her in forging a future where empowerment and equality are realities for all, regardless of race, gender, or background. Through this transformative story, viewers are encouraged to awaken their own power, challenge systemic injustice, and become champions of a more compassionate, equitable world, a world where every individual is valued, respected, and empowered to thrive. Cassandra's journey was never meant to be easy, but the incident aboard the plane marked a pivotal moment that reshaped her path in profound and lasting ways. That day, confined within the cramped space of the aircraft, she faced a harsh reminder of the biases and subtle prejudices that still pervade corporate culture and society at large. The experience was jarring, a moment of vulnerability that exposed how deeply systemic inequities can affect even the most accomplished and resilient individuals. Yet, rather than allowing that incident to diminish her spirit, Cassandra transformed it into a catalyst for change. She emerged from that ordeal stronger, more determined, and deeply committed to using her voice and influence to advocate for diversity and inclusion in the professional world. Cassandra had long understood the challenges that came with being a woman of color navigating corporate spaces traditionally dominated by those who looked and thought differently from her. Over the years, she had quietly endured countless microaggressions, subtle dismissals, and unspoken barriers. The flight incident, though painful, crystallized for her the urgent need for systemic change not just in policies but in culture and mindset. She realized that true progress required more than surface-level diversity, it demanded authentic inclusion, where every individual's value was recognized and their contributions truly welcomed. With renewed purpose, Cassandra stepped into her leadership role with fresh vigor. She became a powerful advocate, not only within her organization but across industries, using her platform to highlight the importance of equity, belonging, and representation. Her leadership was defined by empathy and courage, qualities that resonated deeply with those who had felt marginalized or overlooked. She spoke openly about her experiences, including the challenges she faced, and invited others to share their stories, building a community bound by shared understanding and mutual respect. Cassandra's advocacy went beyond speeches and awareness campaigns. She worked diligently to implement tangible changes, developing mentorship programs for underrepresented employees, pushing for transparent hiring and promotion practices, and collaborating with human resources to foster a culture where inclusion was woven into the fabric of daily work life. Her efforts aimed not only to open doors but to ensure that those who walked through them would be supported, heard, and valued. The corporate world, she believed, could only thrive when it embraced the richness of diverse perspectives and created space for every voice. Alongside allies both inside and outside her company, Cassandra formed coalitions that challenged old paradigms and championed new ones. These partnerships strengthened her impact and broadened the conversation, reaching beyond individual organizations to influence industry-wide norms. Together, they worked to dismantle systemic barriers that had persisted for generations, advocating for policies that addressed everything from unconscious bias to equitable pay and career advancement opportunities. Despite the progress, Cassandra knew the journey was far from over. Change, she understood, is rarely swift or simple. There would be setbacks and resistance, moments when the path forward seemed uncertain. But her resolve was unshaken. The experience on the plane had taught her a vital lesson: resilience is born not from avoiding adversity, but from facing it head-on and using it as fuel for growth and transformation. Every challenge she encountered became an opportunity to reaffirm her commitment to justice and equality. Her story resonated widely because it was deeply relatable. Many professionals, especially those from marginalized backgrounds, saw themselves in Cassandra's journey: the frustrations, the hopes, and the relentless pursuit of a workplace where they could be their authentic selves without fear of bias or exclusion. Her narrative became a beacon of hope, inspiring others to join the movement for a fairer, more inclusive future. As Cassandra looked toward the future, she carried with her both the scars and the wisdom gained from her experiences. The incident on the plane was no longer a moment of defeat but a defining chapter that sharpened her vision and deepened her empathy. It underscored the urgent necessity of her mission and fueled her belief that corporate spaces could evolve into environments where dignity, respect, and opportunity were the norm rather than the exception. In her continued leadership, Cassandra remained a steadfast champion for change, nurturing a culture of inclusion that celebrated differences as strengths. She mentored the next generation of leaders, ensuring they had the support and tools necessary to succeed and advocate for others. Her work was a testament to the power of individual courage combined with collective action, a reminder that lasting progress requires both personal resilience and a united commitment to justice. Ultimately, Cassandra's journey forward symbolized more than just professional advancement or personal triumph. It embodied the broader movement toward equity that challenges us all to do better, to listen harder, and to stand taller for those who follow. Her story was a call to action and a source of inspiration, affirming that through perseverance and hope, we can shape a corporate landscape and a world that is fairer, kinder, and richer for everyone.